This podcast is sponsored by the book, A Mostly Magnificent Memoir, by Bo Bennett, a hilarious, heartfelt glimpse into growing up in the 80s. Grab your copy at thestoryofbo.com.
How the Cold War shaped media and journalism in the 1980s. Discover how the Cold War influenced media and journalism, shaping narratives during a tense era filled with 80s pop culture, music, and iconic TV moments. The Cold War's sneaky influence on media and journalism. All right, picture this. It's the 1980s, a time when big hair, shoulder pads, and neon ruled both the streets and your favorite 80s TV shows. While kids were jamming to 80s music like Michael Jackson and Madonna, the grown-ups were glued to their TV sets. But not just for the latest 80s movies or celebrity gossip. No, behind the scenes, the Cold War was quietly shaping how news was reported and how media operated. And man, did it get wild. So imagine this. We're smack dab in the middle of a super tense standoff between the US and the Soviet Union. You know, that whole who's got the bigger bomb and the slicker spy drama. It wasn't just about military power. It was also a battle for your eyeballs and your brain. Enter media and journalism as the ultimate weapons of persuasion. During the Cold War, news outlets weren't just telling us what happened. They were selling us a story, often with a heavy side of bias. You can think of it a bit like those legendary 80s pop culture battles, like VHS versus Betamax or Pepsi versus Coke, but way more serious and a lot less fizzy. Government influence. Media in both America and the Soviet Union was heavily influenced by their respective governments. In the West, many news organizations operated under the assumption that it was their patriotic duty to portray the USSR as the big bad wolf. Meanwhile, Soviet media painted the West as decadent and doomed. No, not with the cool 80s fashion vibes, but more like end-of-the-world vibes. Censorship and propaganda. Both sides used censorship, not unlike how your favorite 80s TV shows would never dare show anything too racy or political that might upset the censors. Governments controlled what stories made the headlines, favoring those that promoted their agendas. That means newspapers and TV news weren't always about the pure, unvarnished truth. Sometimes they were more like scripts in a Cold War theater production. Spies in the newsroom. It's not just James Bond stuff. During the Cold War, journalists were often seen as unsung intelligence gatherers. They were walking a tightrope, trying to get valuable info without tipping off the wrong side or getting caught in the middle of spy games. Seriously, the way the media operated back then was like watching the A-Team plan a mission, but with news cameras instead of van rides. You never knew when a story might get twisted, edited, or highlighted just for maximum political effect. This huge joystick maneuvering had a lasting impact on journalism too. It taught news outlets how to frame stories, how to craft narratives that would resonate emotionally, and how to handle the concept of fake news before the term even existed. And yep, the Cold War basically made the 24-hour news cycle idea inevitable, even though that wouldn't come fully to life until decades later. And hey, if this balancing act of media influence during a global showdown sounds like something that could be in an epic memoir, you're in luck. There's A Mostly Magnificent Memoir, a fun and heartwarming story of a kid from a small town growing up in the 1980s. It includes all those nostalgic moments from 80s pop culture, but also gives you a sense of the times, when the Cold War shadow stretched long over everyday life, media, and even the way we saw the world. So next time you dig through your vintage 80s TV shows or jam to your favorite 80s music soundtrack, remember, there was way more going on behind the scenes than just wild hairstyles and flashy clothes. The Cold War's impact on media and journalism was a hidden chapter that changed the way stories got told and how people got their news. Kind of like how stars like Madonna changed the game in 80s music, except it was all about shaping minds instead of dance floors. And if you want a slice of that era with some personal spice, grab a copy of A Mostly Magnificent Memoir. Think of it as your time machine back to the 80s, with a story that's funny, touching, and full of all the colorful vibes that made the decade unforgettable.